Hi, welcome back to Walk, Run, Soar. I'm coming at you post treadmill run today. It is day 26. Today's Thursday. We're doing number 34 in the book. Always a fun topic. Hitting the wall. We just love that wall, don't we? Our verse is from the book of Psalms, chapter 40, verses 1 through 3. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid rock and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. So of course she's talking about, when you're running long distance at some point, more often than not, maybe, I don't know, you'll hit a wall. I haven't run anything longer than a half marathon, and I do not run super fast. So I actually have not experienced a wall yet, but I have a sneaky suspicion that when I go to train for my marathon, I probably will. So I always like to read about how people deal with it, which is good. We'll get a little advice at the end of this one. But she was talking about how several years ago she was running the Two Cities Half Marathon in Fresno with her Remember Haiti team. And she says that for the first good bit of it, she was feeling good. It was a flat course, beautiful scenery. But she says around mile 10, she hit the wall. And she said her shoulders started to droop. She could feel the salt on her face. Breathing was uneven. Legs felt heavy. And she felt like she was running through molasses, she said. She says that scientific studies have shown that hitting the wall is a common thing among distance runners, also called bonking, a feeling of sudden fatigue and loss of energy caused by the depletion of glycogen stores in the liver and muscles. And she says even the brain shuts down as a preservation method when bonking, which can lead to negative and defeated thinking. And she says that marathoners will usually hit that wall between 18 and 20 miles, and half marathoners, it's usually 10 or 11. So she was starting to feel that defeated feeling. She was running alone at the moment, and there wasn't many fans at that particular stretch of the race, and she wasn't sure how she was going to finish. And then all of a sudden, a guy ran up next to her, and it was a friend that she hadn't seen in years named Carl. They started chatting, and he was hitting a wall too, so they decided just to stick with each other and finish the race together and get them to that finish line. So of course she brings that around to that's what God does when we hit a wall in our life. And that's what David was saying in that psalm, in those verses that I read. David was crying out to God, and he tells us what God does when we cry out to him. He turns and hears us, lifts us up, sets our feet on solid ground, and steadies us. So she asks us to remember if we feel like we're hitting a wall in life, talking about stuff like depression, anxiety, fear, things falling apart, difficulties in families, that God will lift you out of it if cry out to him. And she says it's okay to cry out to God like David did. He hears our cries and can put a new song in our heart. And she finishes that her husband Sean was actually announcing finishers' names as she was at that race, as people were crossing the finish line, and she talks about the great joy she felt in her heart when she heard him say her name as she crossed the finish line. So that's such an amazing feeling, especially if you get to a point in a race and you're like, I really don't know if I can finish. But when you get to that finish line, you pushed through and that you did it. It really is an amazing feeling. All right, our faith step. Have you ever hit the wall in a training runner race? If you hear that scratching sound, it's my dog. He needs to go outside. Scout, you gotta wait a second, bud, okay? I have never, like I said, hit the wall for running, but definitely hit walls all the time in personal and spiritual life. And I've gotten, over the years, I've gotten more and more, and I still don't do this sometimes, but I feel like as I've matured, that it's more of instinct when I feel like I'm hitting that wall, to turn to things like this, to turn to God's word, to just sit down. Like just even this morning, I just had to sit down and have a good cry because I was having a bad morning. And I just sat down and cried to God and told him, what was bothering me. And you know, what was making me upset. And honestly, having a good cry really, really does help. So she says that that's what you should cry out to God today and ask him for help. Write out a prayer or pray as you run. Our inspirational quote is from Bill Bowerman again. The real purpose of running isn't to win a race, it's to test the limits of the human heart. And I'm not going to be like placing. Most of the time I don't, you know. I like to set personal goals for myself for races instead of going there being like, I want to get first place and beat all these other people, because realistically, that's not going to happen for me. But it is such a feeling of satisfaction to set goals for yourself and achieve them. And even if I don't achieve them, which sometimes I haven't, if I knew I gave it my best, that's all I could ever ask for. Okay, so here's the good stuff. Or well, all of this is good stuff, but this is the good running stuff. Training notes from Coach Sean. He says that if you begin to hit the wall in running, immediately hydrate with electrolytes and consume carbs in the forms of gels, energy chews, or pretzels. My sister said that she used pretzels for her first marathon this year. So, and I had never even thought of that, but it's, you know, very easy to carry with you as pretzels. The fuel will help you perk up and will hopefully provide you a second wind. If you're in a race or are healthy enough to continue, put one step in front of the other and focus on getting to that next mile marker. And I do this even on short races, don't think about how many miles you have left to go. That's one of my mini mantras that I tell myself. Run the mile you're in. Don't think about how much you have left. Just think about where you are. And now you try to use that attitude for life too. Don't think too far into the future because it's going to be so overwhelming. I've said that several times during this devotion series. So I hope everyone's having a great Thursday. Tomorrow will actually be my two-parter because we are leaving for spring break on Saturday. So I am just gonna worry about posting one video on Saturday instead of the normal two that I do. So I'm gonna do my two-parter tomorrow. And be sure to stay tuned on Sunday for my weekly update video because I'll be sharing about what we're gonna be doing in the next week, and it'll be really exciting. So I will see you tomorrow.